Questions?
Yes, Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I've given notice of the following private notice question addressed to Dr. the Honourable Prime Minister, Minister of Defence, Home Affairs and External Communications, Minister of Finance, Minister for Rodrigues and Outer Islands. Whether in regard to the transfer of sovereignty over the Chagos Archipelago to the Republic of Mauritius, he will state where matters stand, and table the latest official communications exchanged between the government of the Republic of Mauritius and the government of the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland in connection therewith, and B, give the names of the international and local legal advisors appointed by government, therefore, since December 2024 to date, indicating the costs incurred in terms of legal fees, air tickets, and per diem allowances in relation thereto, and including in relation to the Honourable, the Attorney General. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Madam Speaker, with your permission, I shall reply to this private notice question, together with Parliamentary question B399 and B416, as they relate to the same subject matter. At the very outset, I would like to point out that under international law, Mauritius has undisputable sovereignty over the Chagos Archipelago, including Chagos, as confirmed by the International Court of Justice in its advisory opinion of the 25th of February 2019, the UN General Assembly in its resolution 73-295, later in the same year, that is 2019, and the Special Chamber of the International Tribunal for the Law of the Sea in its judgment on the 28th of January 2021. I should add, Madam Speaker, that this fight was started in 2010 when I was Prime Minister, and at the time when the UK purportedly established a marine protected area around the Chagos Archipelago. I instructed our lawyers to initiate actions at the level of an UNCLOS Annex 7 arbitral tribunal. Mauritius was successful in as far as the MPA was concerned, and the tribunal declared unanimously, and I quote, in establishing the MPA surrounding the Chagos Archipelago, the United Kingdom breached its obligations under Article 23, under Articles 2.3, 56.2, and 1944 of the Convention, unquote. Therefore, Madam Speaker, in addition, the tribunal found, 1, that the United Kingdom's undertaking to ensure that fishing rights in the Chagos Archipelago would remain available to Mauritius as far as practicable is legally binding insofar as it relates to the territorial sea. 2, that the United Kingdom's undertaking to return the Chagos Archipelago to Mauritius when no longer needed for defense purposes is legally binding. 3, that the United Kingdom's undertaking to preserve the benefit of any minerals or oil discovered in or near the Chagos Archipelago for Mauritius is legally binding. In addition, 2 of the arbitrators gave a dissenting and concurring opinion in which they confirmed that the Chagos Archipelago forms part of the territory of Mauritius since it was unlawfully detached from the territory of Mauritius. This laid the foundation for the ICJ advisory opinion of the 25th of February 2019. I also wish to recall that Mauritius has never recognized the so-called British Indian Ocean Territory, which the United Kingdom purported to create by unlawfully excising the Chagos Archipelago from the territory of Mauritius prior to our independence. Madam Speaker, in reply to Part A of the private notice question, as the House is aware, on the 22nd of May 2025, Mauritius and the United Kingdom signed an agreement concerning the Chagos Archipelago, including Chagos. Under this agreement, the United Kingdom recognizes the sovereignty of Mauritius over the Chagos Archipelago in its entirety, including, that is, Chagos. It is therefore misleading to refer to the transfer of sovereignty over the Chagos Archipelago, as implied in the question. Mauritius is sovereign. Madam Speaker, the agreement on the Chagos Archipelago has to be ratified by the United Kingdom so that it can enter into force. In order to be able to ratify the agreement, the British government introduced on the 15th of July 2026 in the House of Commons a bill titled Chagos Military Base and the British Indian Ocean Territory Bill. 2025, sorry. Following its adoption by the House on the 20th of October 2025, the bill was considered by the House of Lords. Since the bill was adopted by the House of Lords on the 12th of January 2026 with amendments, it had to go back to the House of Commons. On the 20th of January 2026, the House of Commons considered the amendments of the House of Lords and rejected all of them except for one. Accordingly, the bill went back to the House of Lords but has not yet been moved. The United Kingdom's stand is clear, and it has indicated that it would have to update the UK-US exchange of notes in respect of the military base in Chagos before it can proceed with the bill at the House of Lords. In a statement to the House of Commons on the 13th of April 2026, Honourable Stephen Doughty, Minister of State at the UK Foreign, Commonwealth and Development Office, indicated that because of the change in position of the US President in recent weeks on the agreement between Mauritius and the United Kingdom concerning the Chagos Archipelago, it has not been possible so far for the United Kingdom and the United States to agree at the political level on an updated exchange of notes in respect to the military base in Chagos, although a final text has been agreed at the level of officials. Madam Speaker, in view of the delay in reaching such an agreement on the updated exchange of notes, the Minister of State stated that the Chagos military base and the British Indian Ocean Territory Bill will not be able to complete its passage during the current session of the UK Parliament. He also stated that the bill cannot be carried over in view of the progress it has already made in the UK Parliament. The Minister of State added that the British government nevertheless remains confident that the agreement between Mauritius and the United Kingdom on the Chagos Archipelago is the best means of protecting the full operation of the military base in Chagos. He further mentioned that the United Kingdom would continue to work with the United States on the agreement and on the way forward, and would also continue to engage with Mauritius. In this regard, officials from the UK Foreign, Commonwealth and Development Office are visiting Mauritius this week. It is at their request, and will hold talks with Mauritian officials tomorrow. In the light of the outcome of those talks, consideration will be given to actions which may eventually need to be taken by Mauritius with regard to the agreement on the Chagos Archipelago. Madam Speaker, on the 31st of March 2026, the Court of the so-called British Indian Ocean Territory, at first instance, delivered a judgment following an application made by some Chagosians as British citizens for judicial review of the failure of the Commissioner of the so-called British Indian Ocean Territory to make a decision on the application of those Chagosians for permits to enter into the Chagos Archipelago, and of his decision to issue removal notices to them following their arrival at Île du Coin in Paros-Banos on the 16th of February 2026. The judgment relates to the application of the laws relating to the so-called British Indian Ocean Territory, and therefore bears no relevance to the agreement between the government of Mauritius and the government of the United Kingdom concerning the Chagos Archipelago, including Chagos, which is governed by international law. This agreement is in line with the international law and has been entered into following the advisory opinion of the International Court of Justice on the 25th of February 2019 and the United Nations General Assembly Resolution 73/295 on 22nd of May 2019, and the judgment of the Special Chamber of the International Tribunal for the Law of the Sea on the 28th of January 2021, all of which confirmed the sovereignty of Mauritius over the Chagos Archipelago. Accordingly, the judgment of the Court of the so-called British Indian Ocean Territory does not constitute an impediment to the ratification of the agreement concluding by the two states, which aims inter alia at providing for the manner in which the sovereignty will be exercised. Madam Speaker, in regard to Part A of the private notice question, I'm tabling the official communication exchange between the governments of Mauritius and the United Kingdom with regard to the agreement on the Chagos Archipelago. Madam Speaker, in reply to Part A of the private notice question, Part B, of the private notice question, since November 2024, Withers LLP, a law firm of London, has been appointed by the current government, and that law firm has designated the following lawyers from its organization to deal with us: Mr. Aire Hussein, KC, Ms. Florian Lavo, Ms. Camilla Gambarini, Ms. Giovanna Gravesevic, Ms. Mayana Tandon, and Ms. Sudipa Spurkasayasha. Legal fees paid to them to date amount to £408,028.40. In regards to the local legal advisors, the Attorney General's office, including the Honourable Attorney General himself, the Solicitor General, Mr. Deby, former Solicitor General, Mr. Yvan Jean-Louis, and Mrs. Soraya Garibou, Assistant Solicitors General, have been acting as such and have not been paid any additional fees. Madam Speaker, an amount of 631,285 rupees has been disbursed for air tickets for our external legal advisors. No per diem has been paid to them. The sums disbursed in respect to the local team from the Attorney General's office for 2 trips in January 2025 and 1 trip in November 2025 are as follows: air tickets, 1,334,461 rupees, per diem as approved rates. Madam Speaker, let me be clear. We shall leave no stone unturned until the issue of the Chagos Archipelago is resolved diplomatically or otherwise. The decolonization process of Mauritius must be completed, and this government will see to it that this becomes a reality sooner rather than later. However, at this stage, we are still engaged with the UK government, which has repeatedly stated that it has not abandoned the ratification process. Therefore, let us see how things progress, but there will come a time when Mauritius will have to look at alternative avenues to assert its sovereignty.
Thank you. Yes, your first supplementary.
Yes, Madam Speaker, thank you. Madam Speaker, I made reference to transfer of sovereignty because the whole process is not yet over. I had to rectify that, Madam Speaker. Now, can the Honourable Prime Minister inform the House? He said there were regular exchange of communication between himself and the British Prime Minister. Can he inform the House what assurances, if any, was obtained regarding the timeline for the transfer of sovereignty to Mauritius?
I already explained, Madam Speaker, that there is no timeline because of the disagreement that there is between the President of the United States and the UK government on the manner in which sovereignty should be given. They are speaking on their terms, not us.
Second supplementary.
Yes, thank you. Can the Honourable Prime Minister inform the House whether the government has received any formal notice from the UK government regarding the suspending of or withdrawing from the treaty? And if yes, will the Honourable Prime Minister give details of this communication? Because we know decisions have already been taken in the UK.
There is no question and no communication on withdrawing There's none. But there's exchanges.
Yes, third question.
May we know what is the reason for those exchanges? About what? What is it about?
But this is precisely why they're coming, I think, today, and they're meeting us tomorrow. We're continuing this.
Fourth question.
Now, can the Honourable Prime Minister inform the House whether he has spoken to President Trump?
Yes, Prime Minister, very interesting.
But I barely think he will have time to do all this. He's very concerned with the war in the Middle East. But I have written to him, yes.
Okay?
Yes.
Yes.
You have not talked to him.
Fifth question, yes.
Will the Honourable Prime Minister agree that we have wasted a lot of time because of an ego issue with regard
This
to
is you're imputing motives.
If he doesn't agree,
No, but you're imputing motives which is not acceptable.
The
Prime
deal
Minister.
that was agreed on the eve of the election, unprecedented, was not a good deal. We improved on that deal. And that is why we can't just come in the new government and agree to what the previous government had agreed.
Fifth question, I think.
all of us recall what the Honourable Prime Minister said in this House when I put the PNQ to him. And I quote, "Let us not cross the bridge before we reach the bridge. Let us reach the bridge and then we will cross it." Honourable Prime Minister, the time has come to cross the bridge now.
No,
Therefore, can you inform the House what concrete steps government intend to take to assert Mauritius' legal sovereignty over the entire Chagos Archipelago, including Diego Garcia?
Including Diego Garcia.
Yes, we have asked for, as I explained, Madam Speaker, we have asked for legal opinion, which we have received, and we are not going to jeopardize the situation. That is why we are speaking to them.
Okay.
Has
Sixth
got out of
question.
control, Madam Speaker.
Sixth question, no
Can the
comments.
Honourable Prime Minister inform the House why the sum of 10 billion rupees was included in the budget 2025-2026 as revenue contingent on the Chagos Agreement, despite the absence of a ratified treaty or a defined timeline, Madam Speaker?
As he said, the treaty has been signed. Ratification is something else, but the treaty has been signed.
I think your seventh
You don't have the money.
supplementary. Don't comment, please.
Yeah, I
Especially
need
not to
to
me.
comment, Madam Speaker.
No, you have to
Okay.
put questions.
The government has made a 3-year budget plan. Can the Honourable Prime Minister inform the House how government intends to address this shortfall of 30 billion rupees over 3 years if the treaty is not implemented? You will agree, Madam Speaker,
Don't
this trou is bigger than the Trubinic, Madam Speaker. Much bigger.
As I said, Madam Speaker, a treaty has been signed. This is why, but then you have this disagreement between President Trump and the British Prime Minister and the officials, and this is why there is a delay.
Okay. There's a demand for a question from your friend. No?
Yes, one more question, Madam Speaker.
And then we have Mr. Ramdas and also, Mr. Duval, because their questions have also been taken care of. Okay?
In the meantime, Madam Speaker, Mr. Mandarin, the self-proclaimed First Minister, has already settled on l'île du Coin. May we know whether government is planning a settlement of Chagosians on the islands of Chagos, including Diego Garcia, and what, if you can inform the House, what logistical and financial provisions have been made, Madam Speaker?
This is a premature question, Madam Speaker. Mr. Mandarin, let me remind
Don't comment
let me remind
while
the leader
we're
of the
speaking.
opposition, Mr. Mandarin acted from Britain as a British citizen who is there. He went to Chagos. The British are dealing with this. There's a court case. There's an appeal on that case. Yes. I have said, Madam Speaker, the leader of God, thank God you're not the Prime Minister, because we would have jeopardized everything. We need to get our Chagos Archipelago back. And this is what we're doing. Not the way you're doing. The way you're doing, you would have jeopardized everything.
Do you have another question?
Yeah, come later.
Okay, so Mr. Duval. Honourable Duval, I'm sorry.
I ask the Prime Minister, in light of the fact that he had a conversation with the Secretary of State on the 23rd December 2024, telling the Prime Minister to sign the deal because Trump would rip it up, and in light of his answer to the parliamentary private notice question, which was put in this House on 23rd December, on the 4th of February 2025, where he said, "Why are we afraid of the President Trump? As if he will tear the agreement. It would in fact be better for him to have a look. If it's a good agreement, then why would he not agree?"
So what's the question?
The question is now, does the Prime Minister still hold the view that this was the proper way of going about in light of the information he had received?
Absolutely. You are right. I think the former Deputy Prime Minister was right. Why do we have to hide behind what the US will say? They will see the treaty anyway. But we proceeded on the basis that what had been agreed by the former government was not what we would have agreed. We have changed a few things, not a few things, quite a few things, and we are now hoping that this will be ratified at some point.
Yes, Mr. Ramdas doesn't want? Okay, because your question 399 was also in that reply. Okay, fine. This? Next one.
The Honourable Prime Minister. With regards to the former terms of the agreement, of the former deal, and the present one, the Prime Minister of the UK, Mr. Keir Starmer, says that they are both virtually the same, and has said that...
Please put a question.
That is the question. Does she agree with the statement of the Honourable Prime Minister, of the Prime Minister Keir Starmer, that here it is being sold as better off for political reasons, but that it is not in fact better off, but they are the same deals?
Yes, Prime Minister.
Then I asked the Honourable Member, if it was the same deal, why didn't we sign it then? Because it was a wrong deal. We had improved the deal, Madam Speaker. We would not prepare, as a new government, to come in and just sign the deal which was made, which was not the right deal for us.
Yes, I think, yes, you still have questions, yes?
À écouter le Premier
Put
ministre.
questions.
S'il avait suivi les pas de ses prédécesseurs,
Ne faites pas
ça, à
des
niveau de Jagnat, on aurait déjà signé cette traité, monsieur le Premier ministre. Can the Honourable Prime Minister inform the House whether government has already considered seeking compensation or back payments from the UK government for the economic losses arising from the prolonged non-implementation of the sovereign transfer?
Prime
Madam
Minister.
Speaker, how can this arise at this point? It doesn't arise. No, it doesn't.
Last one, Madam Speaker. Can the Honourable Prime Minister inform the House as to why the Chagos Archipelago has not yet been included in the Outer Islands Ministry, despite being constitutionally part of the Republic of Mauritius?
You know, Madam Speaker, perhaps the Honourable Leader of the Opposition doesn't realize we do not have control of the Chagos Archipelago at this point. We have signed a treaty, but we don't have control.
Okay, then if I understand, we have finished